Hello, welcome everybody. This is Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, and that's Ken Weep from Sportsnet. And yes, I know you're frustrated. Tough game tonight. People are going to be frustrated from that one. We're going to vent our frustrations. We're going to talk it out. Everything is going to be all right. We're going to get on the other side of this. But we wanted to start the show on a really positive note. I know that some of you may have seen on Twitter, we got a big guest here tonight. Super happy to have on the Kenny and Renny show, Eric Comrie, goaltender for the Manitoba Moose, who set a very important distinction, franchise record in wins by a goaltender, passing Corey Schneider, another all-time great Manitoba Moose. Welcome to the show, Eric. Let us know how you're feeling right now and what a day like today means for you.
I'm pretty excited. It was a pretty special thing for myself to be able to accomplish that tonight. I mean, it's been home to me for a long time, Manitoba, and it's just been extremely special for me.
Yeah, Eric, I was listening to the third period. How would you describe the game, and what was it like to get a shutout in that manner?
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, the game was good. I mean, the team played really well in front of me. I mean, they have a really good team down there this year. The Moose guys are they're playing really well. They have a solid decor, and it's pretty easy for myself. I mean, I only had 13 shots, but I mean, it was just special. It was a special night for myself, though.
Eric, you talked about this being home for you for a long time. What was it like over the last couple of years, through circumstances and through the business, being pulled away from home and coming back the way that you have on numerous occasions?
No, for sure. I mean, it's part of the job. I mean, it's always exciting to get opportunities other places, but every time you'd come back to here for myself and my girlfriend, it was almost like coming back to people we know. We have a lot of friends here. We have a lot of people that I almost think of them as family. I mean, I have a lot of really, really close friends that I've made throughout the years here, and every time I came back, it was a great welcome back, and it was just it was almost like it sucked moving around a lot, but it was almost okay. You know what? It's okay. We're going back to see a lot of friends and a lot of people we know, and it's going back to family almost.
Eric, what was today like, and what were some of the messages that have poured in, maybe from teammates or former coaches, or I mean, what was that stream of congratulations like, and anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of former teammates I play with, a lot of great guys. I mean, it was just fun to reconnect with them, and we had some laughs and shared some memories over some just past years, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, and then after the game, I kind of treated it like a normal day. Went out for a walk with my dog and my girlfriend, and just kind of relaxed. It wasn't anything too crazy, but I mean, it was special to see all those congratulations come in.
You talked about people in this market feeling like family. But when it comes to your real family, I played hockey with a guy who played against your older brother, Mike, in college, and just talked about how magic he was, especially at that level. And I remember that year that he was there, and then, to the WHL. And I wonder, when you go and you look at him and his career, what he was able to accomplish, how do you lean on your family members who've played in the NHL in guiding you through the process that you've gone through in your career?
Well, I'm a goalie because of them, for sure. Two older brothers. they said, get it net, and that's what I did. So that's why I'm a goalie. But you know what? Honestly, though, it's been special. It starts with my dad. I mean, he instills hard work ethic for us. Right from the start. I mean, right growing up, he taught those two guys. I mean, they're both undersized forwards. They're 5'9", 5'10", two guys that played in the National Hockey League, and he taught them hard work and how to get there. And it's just it's followed me throughout the years. I mean, he's been the role model that we followed, and to be able to lean on Mike and Paul as well has been it's been a lot of really, really great for myself.
Sean and I have talked a lot about your kind of sunny disposition, Eric. I mean, how valuable has that been, especially during this pandemic season, first in New Jersey and then being on the taxi squad and having so little game action for someone who's used to playing as much as you are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of a take it day by day mentality I've always had. I mean, no matter what, I'm just trying to get better. Every single day I get on the ice, and every single day I go to the rink. I mean, I'm just trying to have fun. I truly love hockey, and it's funny because you think like everyone truly loves hockey, but I truly do love hockey. Every single time I'm on the ice for practice, every single time I'm playing a game, I'm just going out there and I'm truly just doing what I love to do. And it sucks not playing games, but even just going to the rink and going to practice, I have a huge smile on my face just because I'm getting to do what I grew up loving to do, and I still do truly love it.
I know very much what it's like to play games in the Iceplex where there's no fans, but there's no fans when I play because no one cares when I play. It's such an interesting experience. I get, playing in the big arenas, and I was in the bubble last year, and you see everything's drawn up really nice here. It looks great. They pump in the crowd noise. What's the experience been like at the AHL level playing in that rink that is, designed for chumps like me to play in with no one?
You know what? It's actually maybe the loudest rink I've ever played in. You can barely hear each other on the ice because it's so. It's just a weird echo in the building. They're pumping in the crowd noise, and when the puck hits the glass, you're like, "Wow, is that loud?" I mean, it's crazy, and it's a lot of fun being out there. I mean, it brings you back to your minor hockey league days a little bit too. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have an unbelievable facility there. I don't know if you've ever seen what we have there. The Moose and Jets they did an incredible job building that locker room there, and we have an awesome facility. But it's when you step on the ice, you got no jumbotron. It's kind of fun.
Eric, you have the unique perspective on Connor Hellebuck. You saw what it was like when he came in and everything else. What stands out to you about his personality? Obviously, he's got that great fire, and saying on Friday he didn't think he should be pulled, and that competitive spirit. What was it like to see that early on, and what's it like to see what he's grown into in terms of becoming a Vezina caliber goaltender?
He's the best goalie in the world, I think. I mean, I see it every single day in practice. I see it every single day he works out. I mean, we actually share the same trainer in the summer. He treats his game very, very intensely. He knows what he wants to do, and he wants to be the best goalie in the National Hockey League, and he wants to bring a Stanley Cup to Winnipeg, and that's truly his goal. Sometimes if he has a little bit too much fire and passion, it's because he really just wants to win a Stanley Cup for the Jets, and I think that's what you want. You want to see that passion. You want to see that drive, and I think that's what makes him the best.
We always talk about this being a unique year, Eric, and clearly it is, and the quarantine and all those different kind of things. But I would argue, and maybe you could disagree or agree, but I would argue for a player like yourself, it's been more unique than any other year because of the time spent on the taxi squad, and then time in the AHL, time at the NHL, the movements that you've made around. What's the difficulty of surviving the taxi squad this year and keeping your sanity as a player who wants to get out and play and contribute and make a difference?
You know what? It's hard to say. I think one of the biggest things, you have to have a good group of guys. And we have a really good group of guys. Like Noje's been there the whole time, and Dom's been there. Lou, there's a couple, we got a lot of Finns up there too. But we have a great group of guys, and we get along really well. And we have fun every single day we go to the rink. And it's not like we're not getting bag skate every single day. We play a lot of competitions, and even scoring competitions just keep the skate alive. It keeps the energy up, and I don't know if you guys have ever been around Nelson Noje or know him. He's a very high energy, just happy guy, and he I mean, just you thrive off that kind of thing, and you're just so excited with that.
How about another great game here for Cole Perfetti. Eric, you saw it firsthand, a goal and 2 assists. What have you seen from him? In the time that you've been able to spend around him with the Moose?
In my 2 games there, I've been very, very impressed. He's a young guy, and he's got a lot of talent. He will. I think he's going to be ready really soon, and he's a really, really special player with a lot of talent. And not only Perfetti, but they got a lot of talented guys down there. I mean, that D-core down there is special. I mean, they got Sandberg down there has been playing great. Chisenholm. I mean, the list goes on and on. They got some special guys. And Billy was down there tonight too. It's a lot of talent. The Jets have done a really good job of getting a lot of good prospects.
Eric, I don't want to dig too hard, and I know these are, asking about the future for players is always, tricky to do, but where do you see yourself going from here? Well, I mean, where does your career take you in the future from this point, and what kind of strategy do you feel that you need to take?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be hard to say. You got to see what the offseason is going to play into. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. I mean, you don't even know what the year's going to look like next year. There's going to be, hopefully they get rid of the taxi squad. They're back to a more normal system. I mean, you really don't know. Like, I got my girlfriend, my dog. We don't want to be moving around as much as we have in the past. So we're going to see what's going to happen.
What's the most valuable lesson you've been able to learn, Eric? And also, what's it meant to have that taxi squad to lean on one another during the course of this year?
It's just been fun. I mean, once again, like the biggest lesson you learn is just going to the rink every single day and truly just enjoying it, because that's what we've been doing all year long. The guys have been going there just really, really enjoying it, having fun, and I think that's all you can do is just get better every single day and really enjoy it. And that's the biggest lesson we've learned throughout the whole time. And I think you get that from Noah too, because that guy works his butt off and he's extremely happy every single day. So I just try and follow his footsteps, and I'm doing something right.
Eric, there's no one that we talk to, from your coaches to your players, who don't tell us, everyone, you fall into the category of one of the greatest human beings that they've ever met. And you know what? You show up every time you take the time to chat with us. You know, people have been saying it here. I think you can see the chat room here. It comes up time and time again. You're all class, and they're absolutely right. We appreciate you taking the time to spend time with us. We're happy that you're here in Winnipeg and we get to enjoy your talents, and we're so happy for you and your accomplishment this evening, or excuse me, earlier today. We appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you. Actually, the comments were throwing me off a little bit. I was reading them and I was losing my thoughts a little bit. I liked it. It was kind of it was really emotionally good. I liked it. It was bringing like a good feeling inside. I just couldn't capture my thoughts sometimes.
So you know what? For the next time you come on, it's good, because it's actually a game we play where I throw, especially when the audience likes to take shots at us and make jokes at us. I try and throw them up to see if I can't trip Ken up. So you got a little bit of an experience.
Yeah, you tripped me up a couple of times. Like, whoa, okay, I gotta get back here.
Well, you know what? We'll have you on again sometime, and then we'll let the audience have at you and see if they can't make you crack up, because that's when they like it the most. When they'll
get me to crack. I have a hard time multitasking, I guess. Chew gum walk thing. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Have a great evening.
Congratulations.
You guys have a great night. Thank you, guys.
You too.
That was a great way to open the show on a night where, you know, it can be tricky to open a show because people are going to be frustrated after a game like that. I get it. People are already going at me in the comments section. Let me bring a couple of these up, because you know what? One of the things, Ken, I love about this format is that it kind of gives you an idea to talk through the things that you do when you're on the job. Now, here's the question. Krusty's making fun of me here, said, Sean, what could you have done better tonight? I'll get into that. I'll let people know what I was trying to do. I wanted to give an open-ended an open forum question for Paul Maurice to kind of go in the direction that he wanted to go in. Now, clearly he didn't want to go in any direction, so he didn't want to talk. So I switched gears and asked him a very specific question about, you know, the hit on Blake Wheeler, response by Kyle Connor, and he, you know, addressed the kind of heat in the game, which he said that he really liked. But I like the fact that I can come here and I can say this is what I was trying to do. I was trying to give a wide open forum for him to take the last two games, of which, you know, the Jets have not been able to get the push that they've wanted in the third period. This used to be earlier in the season the team that used to be able to make that push and get back into games. Hasn't happened the last little while, seems to be dissipating as the season goes on. So I thought I'd give him the opportunity to focus on the things that he did, or he wanted to focus on. He clearly didn't want to focus on anything. That's the explanation, or it's the one I'm sticking to regardless. But Ken, let's get into the show the way that we always do. You just give me your thoughts on what you saw here this evening.
Yeah, I mean, the Leafs kind of imposed their will. This was the latest challenge to their throne, if you will. Another team trying to steal the first place crown in the regular season, and the Jets weren't able to do so. I mean, they obviously came out a lot stronger than they did the other night. Big goal early on, smart play, good zone entry by Dubois, and excellent feed by Stastny, excellent finish on the backhand by Ehlers, but after that, they just were not able to really generate a whole lot offensively. And I mean, they were pretty stingy defensively. It's not like, I mean, Jack Campbell was steady, but it wasn't like he was under siege. So the Jets, it's sort of too, one of those, you know, back to the drawing board, if you will. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck admitted it after, when I asked him what he thought of the series. He thought that the Maple Leafs found their playoff level. And he basically insinuated that the Jets did not find their playoff level, and he has to be right. I mean, if that's the level for the Jets, they're going to have a tough time winning a series with the Leafs. But that's the beauty of a 10-game regular season series. There's a lot of things you can learn and a lot of things you can digest. And again, I told you this before in our pregame show. the truth of the matter is I don't know that you can glean a whole lot from tonight that you could apply to game one, whether it's in the first round or, again, most likely with the Leafs putting their stamp on first place, if the Jets can make the second round to play the Leafs. It's going to be, a lot is going to happen from now until then. But again, obviously the biggest story of tonight was Mark Scheifele being benched by Paul Maurice. By my calculations, I think it's happened one time, at least one time that I can remember. I mean, I've covered all 10 seasons, and the only other time I can remember this happening was when Paul Maurice sat down Scheifele, Wheeler, and Kyle Connor for the entire third period in Nashville. I want to say it was 2017-18, and I think it was the game where that parade of penalties was happening and the Predators kind of took control on the power play. I can't remember if it was 7 or 8 power plays in a row, but regardless, that was something too that certainly raised an eyebrow. When the head coach sits his leading scorer down and limits him to two shifts in the second period and sits him basically for the equivalent of 17 on-ice minutes, that is something that certainly catches the attention of Mark Scheifele, and it also catches the attention of the rest of the Winnipeg Jets, because as Paul Maurice answered, they have some core values that they have to adhere to, and it's easier to make that kind of a definitive statement when a team is in the midst of losing its third game in a row, losing their third game in a row for the first time this season, which is something that we simply haven't seen so far.
So a violation of values, they never called it that, but if they've got core values that need to be adhered to, then the suggestion is core values were not adhered to. What was the issue here tonight? Was it that shift where he got caught out for a long time, and I believe was it the shift that resulted in the Tavares goal?
So I think it's twofold. In both of Mark's shifts in the second period, I mean, we've heard Paul Maurice hammer home the importance of shift length this year, and he's specifically gone to Scheifele on several occasions and applauded him for the job he's done in terms of keeping that shift length at a reasonable level. I think the time on ice for those two shifts was 118 and then 128 for that 4-on-4 shift. He got off the ice before the goal by Tavares was scored, but I think there was a little bit of coasting happening on the way to the bench at the end of a long shift. And I think the other thing that stood out, Sean, on that shift, at a time when Scheifele probably should have thought about going to the bench, he joined the rush offensively to try to make it a 2-on-1, but had nothing left in the tank and was unable to make it an odd man rush. And then I don't think that Maurice liked the coasting to the bench on the line change, which again was part of the reason it resulted on a 2-on-1 rush that William Nylander found Tavares for that goal. Again, a few things went wrong on that shift, but I think it's quite clear that he stayed on the ice too long, and Maurice didn't like the effort level in terms of getting to the bench and when the change was made.
We talked about this briefly. Is this a benching light? I mean, if we think about like a serious benching, we go back to Patrick Laine, who got benched early in the game and just sat there for painfully sat there through the rest of the game. So this is, you're sitting down for the rest of the second period. You come back in the third period. Is this a benching light? Is that all it took to send that message? Did you see that message was received, and did you see a response by Mark Scheifele?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it benching light. I mean, there might have been one time where he sat for a longer duration. So for me, it's a stern message. And here's the thing, Sean. If you don't give Mark Scheifele the opportunity to respond in a game like today, and you have him sit on it and stew on it until Monday night when he has to play Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers, I don't know that changes the recipe. There's no doubt that Mark Scheifele had his attention caught by the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. There's a lot of people that said Paul Maurice wouldn't do this to Mark Scheifele, and he did it at a time where the Jets are now, 9 games left in the regular season. In terms of his response, there's no doubt he was pursuing the puck. You saw a couple of those shifts where he won battles down low with the puck. Did it result in any specific goals? No, but I definitely think it was quite clear that Mark Scheifele got the message. Both you and I were watching him for body language. His stick was flipped upside down. He was near the end of the bench for the last 13:01 of the second, and then to start the third. But I mean, again, I think that I did see, some effort. You can call it a turnover on the empty net goal. Mark Scheifele's trying to make a play. He's on the ice to try to make a play. It's a 2-goal game. You have an advantage. I understand people are upset. Well, when there's player is applying pressure to you on the boards, it's either going to catch that player and create an opportunity, or it's going to get turned over. So, again, here's the big thing. How's Mark Scheifele going to respond against Connor McDavid? We don't know if Adam Lowry will be available on Monday night, but we know tonight that Scheifele was asked to go head-to-head with Austin Matthews and John Tavares. We expect he'll go head-to-head unless Lowry's back against McDavid and Draisaitl on Monday, and that's a matchup that hasn't gone well for Mark Scheifele. But I think that was probably part of the benching. It was certainly was an adherence to the core values, but I think it's that line has got outscored to the tune of 8-1 in their 5-on-5 play this year. So against McDavid. And the Jets can't have that happen if they plan on trying to beat the Oilers in a series that now looks like it's the most likely first-round matchup.
Ken, if I would have told you that in this game they were going to take and match strength on strength and put Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler and Kyle Connor out against Marner and Matthews and Foligno, and that game would include a benching of Mark Scheifele at some point for violating core values, and it ending up in a 4-1 loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs, would that not have sounded like the most nightmare scenario you could have imagined coming out of this game and potentially out of this series? Because a lot of people are looking at this, and someone said it earlier on, this was a disaster, this 2-game set. I mean, if you write it down on a piece of paper and I deliver it to you from a time machine before the game happens, are you looking and saying, this isn't going to go good? Was it a disaster? Did we just witness a disaster?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit excessive personally, but I mean, again, the Jets certainly aren't going to use that template as something they think that they can have success with. But here's the irony. I mean, we've been talking about the importance of trying to shut down Matthews and Marner. The Jets actually kept Matthews off the score sheet, and the only reason Marner scored was a bounce off the stanchion. So in a game where the Jets actually held that line in check, they still lost. So they didn't find a way to win the other matchups. So again, I know someone took some exception to me saying that I'm not saying this game today didn't matter. Of course it mattered. The Jets still had a chance to try to get to first place. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what will transpire between today and May 30th or whenever the Leafs and Jets will meet. I don't think we're going to look back and remember, hey, you know what? The Jets really found out that didn't work against the Leafs on April 24th. And again, it's the regular season. Things change in the playoffs. Teams are ramping up. There's a lot to learn for both teams from this game. The Jets need to do a better job against the Leafs. Now the Leafs have taken control of this series. At the start of this 2-game set, they were even in points. Now the Leafs have built a nice cushion, and there's one more game left in the regular season. Will that game matter to either team in terms of jockeying for position? That we don't know, but it certainly doesn't look like it'll be a battle for first place. It will much more likely be a battle between second and third for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, let's put that to bed. What was it I'd said at the earlier on? So if the Jets went 6-3 down the stretch, which I think would be a pretty decent run if they were to do that, what would it be? 2-6 that the Leafs would have to go, and that would tie things up. I mean, that's over. That ship has sailed. We're squarely into the battle for second situation, which the Jets, while they still currently sit in second, are 1 point up. They are 2 games ahead of the Edmonton Oilers. So now the good news is the next 2 games are against the Edmonton Oilers, and they can win those 2 games and go up by 5 points and erase that advantage. Their fate is in their hands. But it's not necessarily the best situation as it stands right now. Before we move on to something else, I want to go back, though, to the benching. And I want to bring this up from Sean's headband. Great name. Love the profile pic. Question, why bench Scheifele tonight but not line in many of his lackluster games in years past? I don't remember Pomo benching players much. I don't want to get into the line-A stuff, but I do want to get into the idea of Paul Maurice not necessarily being a benching style coach. To go to the lengths that he went tonight to do this, like you said, you think you remember one point that top line got benched against Nashville on one evening. To bench Mark Scheifele, is this an in-game problem? Is this a culmination of issues over time? Why are we getting into a tool that Paul Maurice so rarely pulls out of his toolbox?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the severity of what he felt the infraction was. And the other part of that, too, is that the Jets can't win with Mark Scheifele playing mediocre hockey. right, Sean? I mean, we've talked about this a lot.
Oh,
Mark
God,
Scheifele
yeah.
is a top 10 NHL player, and he needs to be playing at an elite level for the Jets to be having success. He's a driver on this hockey team. So I think that tells you, and I mean, Maurice said it, when things are tough, that's when you got to get in. That's when you have to stick to your core values. You don't want things to fracture. I mean, do you think Paul Maurice went into this game thinking, you know what I got to do today to get the boys going? I need to bench sharp Mark Scheifele. Not a chance he went into that thinking that. So sure, you're right. I mean, when a coach doesn't want to play that card, that tells you how serious he believes that he needed to send a message to Mark Scheifele. That message was sent quite sternly, and now it's about the response. I mean, nobody likes to get benched, but we heard Blake Wheeler say it. We heard Paul Maurice say it. Mark Scheifele is a proud individual. There's no chance that he doesn't take exception to being benched on Hockey Night in Canada on a Saturday night in a game against the Leafs and responds to it. There's no chance to me that Mark Scheifele goes on a shell, takes his puck and goes home and says, you can't bench me, I'm not playing anymore. Not a chance, zero chance. Anybody who's watched Scheifele knows that's simply not the case. Again, did Paul Maurice want to do it? No, but he felt, to me it seems like he felt he had no choice, and he definitely got the attention of Mark Scheifele and the Winnipeg Jets. And now it's about how they respond. We've said this all year. The Jets' calling card has been an ability to bounce back. This is the first time they have a 3-game losing streak. Nobody is saying that's cause for celebration. No player, no coach, no GM, no anything. But how do you respond when things get tough? That's what you need to learn about hockey teams. It's easy to assess people when things are going well. It's much harder to assess when things are going tough. That's when you find out what true leadership is, and that's when you find out how much buy-in your players have.
You talked about their response. This becomes the question to me. So if you're looking for a response not only from Mark Scheifele but from your team, you're looking for it in that moment. Did we see that? Did we see the rest of the team rise to the occasion? Because Connor Hellebuck talked about afterwards, when you see that situation, what does he want to do? He says you want to pick it up for that guy who's sitting on the bench and isolated, being benched, standing there, everyone's looking at him. You want to pick it up for that guy. I'm not sure I saw that from the rest of the team this evening, Ken. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think they took notice, and I mean, the game, it just didn't have a whole lot of flow from the Jets' perspective. I thought there were some shifts early. That Dubois line was excellent. I thought that Dubois was very involved again, engaged physically. Nick Ehlers was flying around again. But there just wasn't enough generated in terms of offense. And again, the Jets spent a lot of time in their own zone, and we know that that's not their strong suit, right? That the Jets are not a defensive juggernaut, and they're playing one of the most offensive teams in the National Hockey League. So when the ice is tilted in that manner, I think it's tough to say it had anything to do with the benching. I just think that the Jets didn't have it, and the Leafs basically took it to them, and I think that's the reality of the situation.
Ken, I may agree with this. Troy Stevens says PLD was the best Jet tonight. Do you think he was the best Jet? And if so, I mean, it's 2 games in a row if that's the case.
He was certainly one of them. Again, I think that Ehlers was very involved, and again, not to make light of it, but one of the more interesting situations was, if you talk about the other things, Sean, if you had Nikolai Ehlers getting involved in a jawing match with Joe Thornton, and one that continued, I know folks maybe at home didn't see it, but we watched it with our own eyes. I mean, Thornton didn't stop talking, and Ehlers was giving him the classic, I'm ignoring you and staring straight ahead, but he couldn't help himself from giggling on a couple of occasions where you had Thornton just absolutely berating him for about 35, 40 seconds. Again, you know what? The intensity in this game was high on a lot of levels. Ehlers certainly did not like that accidentally on purpose bumping into him when Thornton was going to the bench, and he let him know on his way to the bench, and then later on, Ehlers slashed the stick out of Thornton's hands, and then Thornton went to the bench with the express purpose of grabbing a stick so that he could cross-check Ehlers on 2 occasions. So, but again, Nikolai Ehlers was not backing down. I love the intensity, and again, Josh Morrissey talked about it. If there's not a strong dislike from teams after you've played them 9 times and can potentially play them down the road, then why are you even playing? I mean, this is not non-contact hockey. You want people to be fired up about playing. And again, back to Dubois. Again, I think he's back to looking very comfortable in the middle. He took a couple, runs at guys. He went at Nick Foligno, his former Columbus Blue Jackets teammate, again.
Yeah.
And again, I thought his puck distribution was really good. I mean, a really smart pass on that entry to Paul Stastny. And then Ehlers, just an absolutely incredible net drive. Nikolai Ehlers makes that play look routine, Sean. Yeah. Anyone who's been on a 2-on-1 driving to the back post on your backhand, that ability to redirect that bar down on the backhand is absolutely high-level, elite skill set. And once again, Ehlers came to play. That line was good, but again, the Jets just didn't have enough players playing at an elite level tonight, and the Leafs did.
I joked on the internet, on Twitter earlier on, that Galchenyuk made a very common error in that he was watching the puck and he looked over. He's like, yeah, I got my man. I got Nick Ehlers. And then he looked back at the puck looked over, and he was gone. I mean, Nick Ehlers is not a guy that you can take your eyes off because he's got a gear that you don't have. If I'm trying to back check against Nick Ehlers, I'm trying to get to that post as fast as I can. I'm not trying to watch the puck and keep the puck from getting there. It makes no sense. I want to get. Oh, sorry. Here, let's go to this. Tyan LeBrokery says, "Is it time to address the recent struggles on the power play?" Now, I don't want. I know where you're going to go with this, but I want to hear you go there anyway. But I will say this: in the last couple of games, it seemed like Toronto figured something out to a degree with the Jets' power play, to the point that the Jets elected to switch up the positions they took and put Blake Wheeler back on the half wall. And maybe it was just an idea to say, we know how to play this other strategy. Let's switch it up in the middle of a power play to get things going. But I want to talk about special teams because of this. The Toronto Maple Leafs special teams early in the year had been far and away, one of the best in the league, and then had gone dormant until now. All of a sudden, they look like they figured things out. They had a power play earlier in that game that was exactly what you used to see from them. They looked like they were controlling the Jets, and the Jets, rather than being aggressive and getting out on guys, were just trying to figure out what spot on the ice they're supposed to be on. And it looks like the Leafs have figured out something on slowing the Jets' power play down. Have we seen these two teams a situation where one team has figured the other out and the other team is struggling to find their footing on special teams?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets' power play was not crisp tonight. There's no doubt about that. I think in reference to Wheeler, Sean, I think that was just an interchange for me. I don't think that they went out with the express purpose of having Wheeler on the half wall. I think it was just the way that's where he just ended up there. Okay. The one thing, though, what we did talk about upstairs, the one thing for the Jets on that unit right now, it seems like the only thing really that has been available has been the Kyle Connor one-timer, and either the Jets are not getting traffic or they haven't been able to get the right angles set up in order to get that one-timer through for a bar down one-timer. So I think that they got to be a little crisper. I think that one other thing that we've seen, Sean, is that for a good chunk of the year, it was more of a 1 minute even split. Right now, it seems like that the Scheifele unit has been a little bit frustrated and has spent a little extra time. There was one pretty good movement power play where they had the puck in the zone for quite some time and were able to generate. But the second unit, for lack of a better term, has been pretty effective. And right now, the Scheifele unit needs to elevate its play with the man advantage. I mean, they've been a top 5 power play for a long time this year. Let's also not forget the Leafs struggled, even with their high-end talent on the power play, for an incredibly long time. But having said that, they seem to be finding the way that it's clicking. So these things, we also know this, Sean. There is ebb and flow when you come to the power play in a season. You never roll, nobody ever rolled. Like the Oilers last year were the exception. They rolled at a ridiculous rate for the entire season, and nobody found a way to stop them. The Jets have been really strong on the power play throughout the course of the year. So I wouldn't say it's at the top of their list of concerns, but they need to do a better job of at least generating momentum with the power play, even if they're not scoring at the same rate that they were as recently as a couple weeks ago.
I like this from Derek Dahlman. Will anything happen with our last game against the Buds? Because, I mean, I had that game kind of circled on the calendar as being, very interesting. And who knows?
Sure.
The numbers, you're right. The numbers suggest that there's still a mathematical possibility that the Winnipeg Jets can get past the Toronto Maple Leafs. Common sense says it's almost impossible for it to happen unless the Leafs, who have gone to sleep twice this season, they just came off a 5-game losing streak, and we all know what happened in the middle of the season when the Jets saw them that first time and took 2 of 3 games off of them. I look at that and think, have the Jets lost their last opportunity to kind of figure out what they need to be and who the Toronto Maple Leafs are in this 2-game series here? Now, I couch that by saying I think they probably have a very good idea what the Toronto Maple Leafs are, but how they plan to play them. This series is kind of turned, I think, is it 6 of 9 games now that the Toronto Maple Leafs have won this year against the Winnipeg Jets. Is this an opportunity lost, these last 2 games, to prepare and get ready for a playoff foe that very much it looks like you are going to have to get through if you want to get out of the North?
Oh,
you okay? Everything
I'm okay, but you froze on my side here. Yeah, sorry, bud.
Okay, sorry. Do you need me to react?
No, I think I heard you about opportunities lost. There's no doubt the Jets missed out on an opportunity to put the pressure on the Leafs in the battle for first place. But as we talked about in our Sportsnet hit, if we've been paying attention this season at all, what has happened every time a team has tried to rip first place out of the Leafs' hands? They have dismissed them outright and raised their levels. So, I mean, again, you have to give the Leafs credit for doing that. They basically are going, post to post here in this race. And you're right. I mean, they've had a that's allowed them to continue to, have a pretty strong hold on first place. Again, these games are important, the last few games, but things change when the playoffs start. Is it important? Teams would love to be playing well, so you don't have to try to flip the switch, but we've seen sometimes teams run to the finish line, get to the first round, and are bounced immediately. Look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. I told the story before. 2 years ago, I was we were both in Tampa for that game in March, Sean. It was a Saturday night game on Hockey Night in Canada. The Tampa Bay Lightning dismantled the Jets on the Saturday night, and I didn't say it to you, but I certainly said it to anybody who would listen. I don't see any team being able to beat Tampa Bay 4 out of 7 times in a playoff series.
Yeah.
What happened? They didn't win a single game. Bounced in the first round by the 8th seed. So, again, I'm not suggesting the Jets are suddenly going to find the formula in the first round of the playoffs, but they certainly have time to sort some things out. And again, they played a very strong game at Toronto against the Leafs. Yeah, they were missing Austin Matthews? Yes. I think the beauty of hockey and the beauty of a long season is that it's very easy to have every single game as an absolute referendum of how a team needs to play. And if they're off, the end of the world is happening. If they win a game, we joke about this all the time. And when a team wins a game, even if it's Toronto, plan the parade route. The Leafs have dismissed the Jets. Well, guess what? The Leafs haven't won a single playoff series since 2004. So, that doesn't go away until they do that and until they win a playoff series. It was the same for the Jets, Sean, in 2018. The franchise, dating back to Atlanta, had not won a single playoff series or a single playoff game when it came to Atlanta. They'd only qualified one other time, been swept by the Rangers. Jets were swept by the Ducks. Hey, winning in the playoffs is tough. There's a lot of pressure, and a lot of teams have been pulled down by the weight of expectation. So, again, I'm not saying to dismiss this. The Leafs were full marks. They brought in a player in Nick Foligno. He immediately found his footing, had a great series, and we saw tonight, for some of those folks who might have said, why did the Jets not wait to sign Adam Lowry, or they paid too much? Well, the Jets missed Adam Lowry in this game and in the last 2 periods of the last game. I mean, the things that he does are playoff-style hockey, and that's the way the Jets need to be played. I mean, that's the Jets. They need to have him in the lineup to have that kind of a long-term successful run.
Remind me to come back to that because we can spend more time on that. I wanted to address it's too far back for me to go looking through the comments, but someone had said earlier on they wish that this little drop in the season had happened before the trade deadline so they would have addressed it. I think we should just go back and say both of us are of the strong belief that Kevin Cheveldayoff pushed really hard to make a move. I personally believe that he thought he had a deal done, something fell through. So this isn't a case. And again, I think Kevin Cheveldayoff made it clear it had nothing to do with him walking away from the table and not liking prices. He said he had no problem with the prices there. Kevin Cheveldayoff tried to make a deal. Kevin Cheveldayoff tried to address the defense on this team. That happened. So get that out of your mind that this was something that the Jets needed to realize at that time that they maybe needed help or that they wanted to go get help. They wanted to, they tried to, it didn't work out. That's just where we're at. Okay. I want to move on to this. Marshall Patterson says, I'm still salty after these last 2 games. I think everyone around here is salty after these last 2 games. Ken, I need your help. I need you to talk me through this situation in real time. I knew we were going to have to do this at some point on the show, but the hit on Blake Wheeler by Rasmus Sandin, the backwards hit, I don't know what to think of that hit. I'm honestly kind of stuck in between trying to decide whether it was an absolutely normal play or whether it was problematic. When the first time I saw it, I thought there's absolutely nothing wrong with that hit. I turned to you and I said that. I had a couple buddies who were texting me, questioning the hit, wondering if it was dirty. And I guess the one thing I see it, a friend of mine had a problem with him turning his back to him. And I thought that's exactly what you're supposed to do as a player. You're supposed to get in between the puck and the other player and shield it with your body, which is what Sandin is doing in that situation. I do think that Blake Wheeler puts himself in a bad spot by reaching out for the puck. There's no other point of contact you are going to get other than Rasmus Sandin's back hitting Blake Wheeler on the head with him reaching out like that. But there's one thing that nags at me with that hit that I can't get over. Rasmus Sandin, in his effort to create backwards momentum, and I think he has to do it to a degree because if he doesn't protect himself, he's going to go flying into the boards when contact is made. But he leaves his feet, Ken. He throws himself backwards into Blake Wheeler and he leaves his feet. And it's not the same thing as running and leaving your feet and boarding a guy or charging a guy, but something about that doesn't sit right with me. If I had to tell you right now, was it a bit dirty? Was there a problem with the hit? I'd say no, but that bugs me. And Blake Wheeler, I thought, said, hey, if the league's got no problem with it, I've got no problem with it. But I believe in his response that he did have a problem with that hit.
Yeah, it's interesting, Sean. I mean, the reverse hit is one that gets a lot of play. It's one that draws a lot of debate. And I think there's reason for debate. I think because you don't see it very often. That's why, for me, it's probably interference, right? I mean, I understand. I mean, Wheeler is pursuing the puck. He does not have the puck. Do I think it was a dirty play? No. I mean, Rasmus Sandin is not a physical player. So Rasmus Sandin is basically a rookie who's trying to stay in the lineup. So I think he was trying to protect himself. I mean, he certainly didn't target the head. Leaving his feet, is that okay? Well, no. I mean, I didn't really notice the leaving of his feet, but I mean, I believe you. And again, you're right. I mean, if Wheeler stays upright and continues to skate forward, I don't think we're talking about a reverse hit. I mean, I think that Blake Wheeler's incredibly fortunate that he didn't suffer another concussion. I mean, his head smashed into the back shoulder / back of Sandin. He just came back from a concussion that knocked him out for 6 games. So he obviously would have had to clear his tests, but we know that last time, after the hit from Tkachuk, the symptoms only came the day after. So that had to be a scary moment for Wheeler. I'm sure he didn't like the hit. How could he have been expecting it? You almost never see Sandin initiate contact, especially when he's the guy going to pursue the puck. So I think it's an interference minor. Again, is it something that needs to be regulated further? I'm not sure, but it's something where it should result in further discussion. I know we got a lot of great debate happening in the chat room as well from a lot of people that are, very smart, high-level coaches and played the game at a high level, and I respect those opinions. So a fault, I mean, I think he did put himself in a little bit of a vulnerable position. And again, I don't think that you can blame Sandin fully because I didn't necessarily see a shoulder check. I don't think is one thing where he was in the situation where I have to hit him before he hits me either. And we also know that Wheeler's not going to crush Sandin from behind in that situation either. So again, I think it was kind of one of those things that just ended up being a tough result. I don't think it was a dirty play necessarily, but I think it would be fair to suggest that it could have been called interference. But I think some other folks pointed out, I think Nikolai Ehlers did this exact same thing the other day. And sometimes you need to brace yourself for being hit, and I think Ehlers did that the other day as well. So, again, is it fair? Could Wheeler have finished the check? Sure. But, again, I think it was just one of those kind of more of an unfortunate result. Again, I don't think it was a dirty play for me, but I also understand where you're coming from. And is that something that needs, if we're talking about player safety, is that something that needs to be discussed further? Sure.
I go back to it right now where I land in my head, and at the beginning of it, I didn't think I had no problem with it all. There's just something about the throwing yourself backwards. It's almost like a cheat code in the game. Well, it's almost like one of those plays where you can, because essentially what happened in the original hit with Brady Tkachuk, where Blake Wheeler was injured, he gets a penalty for the play, but it's that same deal where you're turning backwards and you're kind of throwing yourself out backwards and being like, how can I be responsible for making contact in a certain spot if I'm not even looking in that direction? It almost seems like a cheat code to be able to do that. I just think something about for him to throw and hit Wheeler and spin Wheeler the way he does and still leave his feet and go in the air and not be pushed forward, to me, that's a guy throwing, knowing a guy's coming in. And like you said, Nicky Ehlers is phenomenal at doing that. But it's a way to catch a guy. I never did that on the ice, but that's a way to catch a guy.
Well, Nick Cronwall is the guy that I would say it started out as it used to be a hip check, but by the end it was a total reverse hit, and that caused a lot of pain for guys because, like you said, you're not expecting to be hit in that manner. So, that's totally that's a great take. Yeah,
I really like this take. It's what we're talking about here right now. Rob Blake used to do it too, right? Rob Blake used to skate up and jump in the air and turn around and hit guys with his butt more so than his back. But I don't know that there's much that you can do to a guy other than, if you're in a situation like that and a guy's throwing himself at you, you can't throw your shoulder into him or anything like that. To me, my instinct on the ice would almost be to get my stick up and protect your body from a guy's back, but then all of a sudden you're cross-checking a guy from behind, right? It's almost like it's hard to find a defense for a play like that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Sorry, I wanted to go to something too. You talked about the trades. Someone suggested there was a done deal for Josh Manson. That is not my understanding whatsoever. Scott Billick reported it, and my information is also to the case that I don't think it got to the stage where Josh Manson was asked to waive his no movement clause. So unless you have information that we don't have, I'd like the proof of that because I didn't see that. I didn't see that reported anywhere else, and I don't think that that's the case based on the digging that we did on that set stretch. Were the Jets interested in Josh Manson? Absolutely. Do I think there was a done deal for Josh Manson? If that's true, then that's news because no one's reported that yet.
Response by Kyle Connor to that hit. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, interesting. It was certainly a topic of conversation, yesterday. Certainly, in terms of some of the things that were happening in the first game of the series. I thought it was an important thing to do. Some people were saying you can't take a penalty there. Well, I disagree. I think that it was an important thing for Kyle Connor to do. We know that Kyle Connor is not a fighter. It was much like the play that happened in Carolina the other night where Jake Gardiner, who doesn't fight either, went at Alex Killorn after the hit on Marty Neckash. I think, honestly, Kyle Connor was lucky he only got a 2-minute minor. He could have got a slashing minor and then a roughing minor as well. But
I want to elaborate on that one.
I thought that was top. I think that it was important for him to do. Again, I don't think the fight is always required, but I think that showed a lot in terms of team togetherness, and I think that Kyle Connor did a good job there. I was going to mention this too. I thought it would have been more likely that the inertia led Sandin to leave his feet after the contact. I don't think he necessarily left his feet before the contact was made. But again, I need to look at it again.
Yeah, and Terry M just looked at it, and I'll take Terry M's word for it. What I remember from watching the replay was that his feet left the ground, and I thought he was going backwards in this direction, and the assertion that it's his inertia from the hit that had his feet lift up makes me feel like he would have been pushed forward. You know, if that's
Sure.
what it is, that he'd be pushed forward, not be going backwards. If you're going backwards, it's because you've pushed yourself off in this direction. Kyle Connor, I've got no problem with that. I like his response. I think based on the saltiness that we've talked about and the chirping that was kind of going on between the teams leading into the game, for something like that to happen, again, I'm not the biggest on, a clean hit is thrown, which again, I'm landing on the side of that being a clean hit. But when a clean hit is thrown against one of your stars that everyone gets involved, I don't necessarily think that has to happen. But at the same time, I don't have a problem if it happens. And I don't have a problem with players coming in and seeing, he didn't see it. All he's seeing is his captain on the ice. Kind of looks like it's a head issue.
Looked wobbly, yeah, for sure.
So I mean, it's your initial reaction. But so I don't mind him doing it. I don't mind him dropping the gloves. I don't mind him getting the 2 minutes afterwards. And I don't mind him taking that 2 minutes to, at the very least, say, we're not going to sit back and let you take runs at our captain or however you want to take it. It's a message sent. But the idea of this, and you and I differ on this, I feel like comments leading into this game by Paul Maurice with the suggestion of the fines that were handed out to the Toronto Maple Leafs and him saying, I thought very tongue-in-cheek that, yeah, we've got no problem with any of these hits because the league says that they're not bad hits, so the league is always right, and boy, did they ever hurt them with those fines. These guys are going to have to take second jobs to pay off those fines. I thought it was clearly tongue-in-cheek. I thought that he did have issues with some of the headshots from last game and didn't like that the league was taking care of them. And you and I got into a little bit of a discussion with this before the game, but the idea of, I feel that they're kind of allowing a lot of the stuff back into the game. Someone touched on it earlier on in our chat room about the idea that cross-checks from behind seem to be back. I mean, if a guy's in front of the net and you want to bury him with a cross-check, we're back to that. It used to be that if you touched a guy's stick with your hands, that it was a hooking penalty because they wanted to get that stuff out. They wanted to let guys freewheel. It used to be that if you flipped the puck behind the defenseman and if he stood in front of you and tried to keep you from getting the puck for more than a split second, that you were getting an interference call. And all that seems to be going by the wayside. And it feels to me like, from what I'm seeing, and I'll admit I haven't seen enough of the hockey south of the border to see if the same thing is happening down there, but it seems like we're allowing that kind of stuff to creep back into the game. And I thought this was an example of that, because if what Paul Maurice is saying is like, if the league says it's a good hit, it's a good hit. And he's looking to them for through fines or through suspensions to protect the players, to police the players, and that's not happening, then if you're starting to feel like the league is not protecting your players, the only place to go from there is to start as players policing yourself and placing yourself in the game again. And I think Kyle Connor doing that tonight is a perfect example of that. Now, to your point, for him only getting one penalty, he walks up and he cross-checks the guy high. He cross-checks Sandin high. Then he gives him a blatant, obvious two-hander right in front of the ref. The ref sits there and watches it, and then he drops the gloves with him and throws punches and gets a 2-minute roughing penalty out of that play. So a cross-check, clear cross-check, clear slash, a two-handed slash on the legs, and then he drops the gloves. And out of that, he gets a roughing penalty. What more clear message could there be coming from the refs that, hey, leave it to yourself to police the game. If you want to go and slash a guy and cross-check him and drop the gloves and punch him, I'll give you a 2-minute roughing penalty. That's how this works. To me, there could not be a more clear message that came from the officials tonight that, sorry guys, if you want to protect yourselves in these situations, it's up to you tonight, and we're giving you free will to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were a lot of things that, intensity's ratcheting up here. It's the 9th meeting. I think both teams are generating that strong dislike for one another, and that's good. I mean, that's great. I mean, we want intensity. There's no doubt about that. Again, I don't think that the Jets are trying to create a firestorm here. Or did they accidentally create one? I mean, it's certainly possible, but again, the Leafs aren't a big, bad, bruising team, and neither are the Jets, so I don't see that being a big issue going forward. I mean, did the refs certainly make it clear that the standard was set at some point in the series? Well, sure, but again, I think the self-policing becomes a little bit dangerous, Sean. And as you mentioned, I think if they were worried about the policing element, then you hand out a 4-minute penalty in that situation, or you give, even though there wasn't really much of a fight, you hand out fighting majors so that those players sit in the box and cool down. You give Connor the extra minor, but you force a highly skilled player to sit in the box and cool down for 7 minutes instead of running the risk of a 2-minute penalty is not a deterrent for that series of events, as you mentioned. So, I mean, that's sending the wrong message. And again, too, and then by the end, I mean, so Dubois and Simmons are barking on the bench. You send those guys get 10s. I mean, again, I think you're just trying to diffuse the situation in that time, but it's too late by then. I mean, the game had already kind of run its course, if you will. Ty, in terms of the fine, it's a CBA maximum. It's I mean, again, yes, it's silly that's the way that it is, but it's not there's nothing that you can do under the current CBA. That's a result of Joe Thornton being a league minimum player after spending his entire career getting paid big dollars. So I understand you can be frustrated by it, but there's nothing that the league or anybody else can do about that unless they decide to change the rule. It's a set amount per game based on the contract the player is currently riding on. You can't charge him for when he was on a $10 million or $8 million deal or whatever it was at his pinnacle.
I want to slightly get into this from Peg City Hockey. Question: why did nobody drop the gloves in a real fight at any point in the game? I felt like they needed to stand up for themselves, and Stanley was back in the lineup. I mean, to me, I'm looking through that game for the opportunities for there to be a fight that is not a staged fight, and I don't necessarily see it other than the Kyle Connor moment, right? Those moments where guys go into it, and I guess, when we had that coming together of Thornton and Ehlers in the corner, it looked like there could have been a point where, guys paired off and squared up against each other. It's just, you don't see that often in the league, and I mean, we haven't seen it out of this team this year. But I guess, he's talking about Stanley coming back into the lineup. Paul Maurice had said, Adam Lowry comes out, we got to get back to Lowry. Remind me to do that because they clearly missed his size tonight. He goes out. Paul Maurice brings in Stanley because he says you lose a guy with size. You bring a guy in with size. He talked more about that kind of being a penalty kill kind of issue. But what did you think about Stanley being back in the lineup tonight? Because he's usually such a big issue, and that doesn't seem to be as much anymore when there's other issues going on. But what did you think about him coming back into the lineup tonight? And is there an opportunity missed by him in a game like that to assert himself more and use his size in a game like that more?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, this is simple, Sean. I mean, Logan Stanley was not brought in to fight. I mean, the fact that he's willing to drop the gloves is a deterrent, sure, but Logan Stanley wasn't brought in to be a goon. I saw some Leafs fans saying, well, that the Leafs should dress Sabrin. Well, Logan Stanley has been on the third pairing for the bulk of the season, especially since Beaulieu's been out. So he was brought in to bounce back after a tough effort, after a game where he had a couple of turnovers and a penalty where he shot the puck over the glass when he wasn't really under severe duress. So again, I totally understand that some folks, again, I don't think that it was a dirty game today per se, and I don't necessarily think 3 or 4 fights were necessary to send some kind of a message to the Leafs. The Leafs aren't out there rolling out there looking to fight, and they're not imposing their will physically. I don't think it was a big deal. If something had happened where Logan Stanley ended up in a situation where he could, get into a tilt with someone, I mean, I don't know that saying, to Wayne Simmons, it's time that we go. Simmons is a very highly skilled and experienced fighter. I mean, I don't think you're sending a message unless there's something that Simmons did in the game to require a fight. I mean, Rasmus Sandin is not going to be dropping the gloves. That was apparent after what happened with Kyle Connor. So I don't think you spend the game chasing around, Rasmus Sandin. So no. I thought Stanley was fine. I think it's important for him to get back to doing the things that made him effective when he got on a really nice roll in the middle of the season. And I don't think he can go looking around, running guys and trying to get into fights every time something little happens. I mean, again, the Jets aren't a bruising team that needs to get into 5 scraps a game. And again, I understand folks aren't saying that they are, but That wasn't the reason for me that he was brought into the lineup. If something had happened organically, I'm sure he would have answered the bell and been more than willing to go after it. But again, he has clearly been told he's in a competition to stay in the lineup. So sometimes fighting can help you stay in the lineup, but that can't be his top priority. His top priority has to be moving the puck, protecting his end of the ice, and clearing the front of the net. And I thought he was pretty effective in that category. So one quick one. I know that Zachary Pretty, the hit on John Tavares was brutal also. In real time, I thought it looked like it was worse than it was. Definitely Matthew Perrault left his feet, and it looked like it had the danger of becoming a headshot with the elbow. But to me, Perrault makes contact with John Tavares' shoulder, which is why I don't think it was a brutal hit. I think that was one of those things where it kind of got away from Perrault. It was definitely a penalty for charging, but it wasn't something that warranted a 5-minute major. And again, Perrault was fortunate, and so was Tavares, that it wasn't head contact made with the elbow and that he did catch his shoulder first. So I think that it wasn't a brutal hit for me. I'm sorry if you feel differently.
I mean, I got to take your word for that one, and you told me that earlier. You talked me down in the moment. The last I saw of it, I did think it was a jump and a headshot.
He definitely left his feet.
Yeah, and excuse me, it looked vicious to me. I have to go back and see it because the last point I saw, you talked to me since then, you explained to me what you just explained to the audience. Now I'll have to go back and look on that. But I mean, if people were thinking that, the last I saw what the suggestion by the audience member was there. Okay, let's get to Lowry.
His elbow comes up high, guys. Yes, his elbow comes up high, but he catches him in the shoulder, not in the face, at least for me. And if he had caught him in the face, then it would have been the Leafs chasing after Matthew Perrault. There was not embellishment, no. He definitely, his elbow came up, but I think he catches him in the shoulder. I think, again, let's all go back and look at it, but that is my opinion on what happened.
I'm going to put this to you plain and simple. Is this a different team without Adam Lowry?
Oh, sure. I mean, we knew that going into the game. And again, we know that Andrew Kopp is a very capable natural center, but that third line for the Jets wasn't quite as effective tonight, in my opinion. And that's not pointing anything out at Kopp. Kopp's had a great season for the Jets, but I don't think that they were as involved. And again, I also think that Lowry brings that physical component that would have been something very effective in a game like this. Come on, Ty. He comes at him from the front. It's not a reverse high hit.
He's don't let him get to you, Kenny. Don't let him get to you.
I love the intensity again. There's no doubt about. Oh, there it is. Sarcasm. There it is. There you go, Ty. We love the contributions.
Yeah. Hey, last one, last place for us to go. Battle for second place now. Let's just get into where this leaves them as they head into play the Oilers, losing 3 straight for the first time. And it's been mentioned a number of times, especially at the top of the show. But now if we're taking a look at the 2 top teams in this division, outside of the Winnipeg Jets, at one time, there was a lot of bragging going on about the Winnipeg Jets having a winning record against every team in the North Division. That's not the case anymore, and it's starting to look like they're having trouble with the other top 2 teams in this division, and very likely, Ken, the 2 teams that they would have to go through to get out of the North Division in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, hey, those are facts. The Jets had a winning record at one point against all the teams. Now they don't. They have had great difficulty with the Edmonton Oilers. They have 2 more chances to try to rectify that situation to a degree. They can't win the season series, but I think the Jets would feel a lot better at 4-5 than they would at 2-7. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's all about how the team is playing going into the playoffs. Again, I think these games are important, but again, I think there's lots to be learned, but things change when the playoffs begin. There's pressure. Again, we've said this a lot, and again, there is pressure on the Jets. There is no doubt about that. The Jets have not been out of the first round. They had 2 early exits in a row. So there is heat on the Jets to try to make a run. They have a core that is in its prime, and they have the best goalie in the National Hockey League. So those are the times when teams need to go on a run. Right now, I mean, there's big news in Edmonton. Yes, Dave Tippett said no big deal. Mike Smith is going to be fine, but a lot of folks in Edmonton, and I bet including our pal Corey, probably wouldn't feel overly confident with Mikko Koskinen rolling between the pipes. So let's see if Smith is ready for this next series. The Jets need to be ready. There's no doubt about that. They got their lunch money taken away in these two games against the Leafs, and they don't want. Josh Morrissey said it flat out. They don't want it to become 4. I mean, what we've heard from the Jets all year, they don't want to lose 2 in a row. Well, guess what? Now they've lost 3 for the first time. They talked so much about their belief this year, Sean. Now is the time you draw on that reservoir of resilience, and then you find out about what your team is made of, because that's what the Jets are finding out. They believe in themselves. They have every reason to. They've had a strong season, but right now there's more adversity in their midst right now than they've had at any point in the season. We also know the Jets have battled a lot of adversity in the last couple of years. They've had a lot of practice with it, and now let's see if they can handle it. I think it's going to be a great series, lots of fun. And I think it's going to be fantastic to watch. I mean, what did the Jets learn from the last time they played them? I mean, we're about to find out.
Ken, I tried to leave you. I couldn't let you go. I just love spending time with you. I want to go back on something here. We talked pretty extensively about Scheifele at the top of the show, but it strikes me before the show we had a conversation about, last game he started showing up. The storyline of him at the beginning of the year wanting his name up there alongside the top players in this division, and for a lot of the season he has not been able to perform against those players when he's had the opportunity. It looked like he was starting to come around in the last 2 games against Toronto, and clearly tonight is a big step backwards. How crucial are these next 2 games for Mark Scheifele to get an established feeling within him that he can roll against the likes of Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews when it comes playoff time?
Yeah, I mean, we know that Mark Scheifele doesn't lack confidence. We also know the matchup hasn't gone well, and we know that Mark Scheifele cares about how things go against Connor McDavid. They trained together. They were teammates on Team North America, and he wants to be held in that conversation. So, again, great opportunity for Scheifele to respond. We know that he would not be happy with how today went. And guess what? If you're the coach, you don't want the player to be happy, but you also want him to respond and show why he's not happy and to show that he's at the top of his game. And, again, that it's incumbent on Mark Scheifele to respond. I would expect him to respond because, again, he's a proud hockey player. And, again, nobody likes to be benched. Anyone who's been benched doesn't like it. But, again, it's all about how you respond. We know Connor Hellebuck didn't like getting pulled. Guess what? He stood on his head at times today. Yep. And again, guys get ticked off. That's okay, because they're going to channel that energy into trying to play at the top of their game.
Okay, that's it. That's it for us tonight. I'm calling it, Ken. We're getting out of here. We don't want them turning the lights right out on us. And again, we got parking meters that are set to expire. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I want to thank Eric Comrie. That was awesome. And you know what? I thought quite therapeutic. I don't know how many of you who are watching right now were there for the very top of the show, but we had Eric Comrie on from the Manitoba Moose and from the Winnipeg Jets for the first 10 minutes of the show, talking about him setting the record for the most wins in franchise history ever with the Manitoba Moose. And what an awesome kid he is. And he said he's going to come back on the show so that you can all do what you do to Kenny and I and make comments like this to try and take us off of our game. So when we're talking and read them, if you can crack us up, we always love it when you're able to do that. He said he's willing to come back and submit himself to you people trying to take him off his game. So if you've ever wanted to see if you can take an NHL, AHL goaltender off their game, break their concentration, we're going to try and set that up for you all. So thank you so much for all your questions, helping direct the conversation here tonight. We really appreciate it. Going to be back next game. Edmonton Oilers is going to be a big one. Before that, if you need stuff to do in the meantime, go watch our episode 9 of our long form podcast that we shot just this last Friday. We had Chris Cuthbert on and Mike Zeisberger. Great conversations, great guys, some great, if we have any football fans, some great CC's, of course, plugged in with the CFL, and great answer when I asked him if he fears if he's called the last ever Grey Cup, which of course was a Blue Bombers victory. So go check that out. Other than that, you can get all our stuff if you want to take this stuff with you. Because Ken, I haven't been doing this. I haven't been pumping the podcast, but we've got a podcast out there. You got to go check that out if you want to be able to take us on the road with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it was a tough loss tonight. Thanks for showing up and talking through it with us. We appreciate that. Let's do it again next time when the Edmonton Oilers come to town for an absolutely crucial game for second place in the North Division. Thanks. Have a great night, everyone.